As we're ringing in the new year on a Thursday, new laws will go into effect in Ohio throughout January. Our Thomas Chase talked with Washington County Sheriff Mark Warden on Keith's Law, which goes into effect on January 19th.
Keith's Law, which was passed and signed by Governor DeWine in October and goes into effect January 19th, aims to improve the interactions between those with disabilities, especially communication disabilities, and first responders. Individuals can voluntarily disclose their disability to first responders so that they will be aware of it before they arrive onto the scene of a 911 call, traffic stop, or other emergency. The Washington County Sheriff's Office has been involved in a Blue Envelope program and a Safe Dispatch program that closely mirrors Keith's Law. Sheriff Mark Warden spoke on the Blue Envelope program.
So it's for individuals who have some type of developmental disability, mostly drivers. Maybe you're on the spectrum or some type of anxiety, maybe nonverbal or something like that. You can apply through the Department of Developmental Disabilities for this packet. And of course, you can have in that blue packet, you could have your driver's license, all your current information, and also the reason as to why you're having that problem with communicating with first law enforcement.
Keith's Law isn't just for drivers with a disability, but also could be used for someone who regularly drives a disabled person. Sheriff Warden recalled a time that Keith's Law would have been utilized in the past.
I talked to a father from northern Ohio whose son was stopped in a traffic stop here. When I reviewed the videos, the officers did a fantastic job. But it was that individual who was, the individual who was stopped was on the spectrum, had a developmental disability. Later told his father. Father called in. I talked to him several times. Father was very thankful for what we did. But in that instance, had the officers known right up front, it had even gone smoother, mostly for the driver, and how we dealt with them. So in that traffic stop, everything went perfect. It was fine, sent on his way.
Those with a disability who want to participate in Keith's Law can submit a disability verification form to the Department of Developmental Disabilities.
I think it's a great initiative. It's an awesome law that's been put in place. It creates that smoother transition between communications and between law enforcement. And again, this is just not only for law enforcement. This covers the whole spectrum, fire and EMS.
In Washington County, I'm Thomas Chase with WTAP News. This is Home.